All right, now I'm going to do oil and oil filter change, and I'm going to drain the transmission fluid and refill it. Okay, I won't change the filter or anything like that. I like to, for every oil change, I like to drain and refill the type WS transmission fluid. When you are going to do maintenance on your car, very important, do things in the right order. So before shocking or lifting the car and putting on shock stands, do first put your handbrake, okay? Then the next logical step is to try to open the hood, okay? You don't want to lift the car or drain the oil and then find out that your hood cannot be released. Go there and open the hood. And before going to the real thing, try to open the oil refilling cap, okay? So do things in the right order. You don't want to find out that this is stuck or the hood can't open or can't hold by itself when you have already your car lifted and your oil out of the car, okay? That's it. For me, it's also very important to measure how much fluid you take either out of the radiator, out of the oil pump, or out of the transmission fluid pump. I like to measure it so that I know what I need to put back. I know for the oil that it's 3.7 liters with filter change. That's around 4 quarts. I'm sorry. But anyway, I like to do that mostly for the transmission fluid, since I don't want to overfill it. Another thing I like to use is, of course, a piece of cardboard for putting under the car, and I use a towel for me. Alright, so 14 millimeters socket for the oil pan and a 10 millimeters extra wrench for the transmission fluid pan. Some model has another 14 millimeters regular bolt, but in this case, since this is a 1cc engine with this old transmission, it has this type of extra socket. And there you have the 10 millimeters extra wrench for the transmission pump and the 14 millimeters one for the oil pan. And here you have the filter. I have this lovely and infamous front filter. Basically, I was given a voucher of around $300 in a lube center, so I bought whatever they had available. I do my maintenance service every 6 months on this car. It's the one that we use the most. So basically, I just risked myself for only one time. I bought the original now. Here you have the oil container for the dirty oil, and of course you're going to place right under it, but a bit to the back of it, because this is going to flow as a stream. It's already I have a hole there, and then I open a little bit there so it can suck air and does not flood. All right, we place the 14 millimeters wrench there, and we break it loose. Once you break loose, you will just put some positive pressure while you unscrew, and you will pray for not making a mess. And I was lucky this time. Something I like to do now that it's going to be a very thin stream coming out of it, I like to place a big funnel under it, so that start not spilling like little waters all over the place. So I'll show you what I mean in a second. And this is what I mean. You see there? I put the funnel so that I give it a bit more high, and I minimize the possibilities of those little waters springing all around the place. Even if you have something a bit taller, it would be better. the closer to that drain plug, the better. And the whole purpose of doing this is to do it right, to trust you have used good quality products and you take your time. So even when you can already put the plug back, just leave it there dripping 10 minutes or so. Make sure most of the oil is out of the engine. When you give time, you can clean the plug as I did. You can put a new gasket as well. What I do is I buy this in bulks. Okay, I buy this in bulks in bags of 10. Cost here in Argentina costs like 80 cents of dollar every new gasket, and I do the same with the aluminum one that has the transmission pan. Okay, and you leave it there dripping and dripping and dripping forever. Meanwhile, I'll take advantage of this to tell you that now the engine has like the engine block is full of the still water because I'm flushing the radiator. Today the minimum temperature was like 45, and tomorrow is 40 Fahrenheit, around 5 Celsius. Okay, so I don't feel super comfortable with that temperature and the engine full of water, because although that's perfectly fine, if the weather forecast is not right, might drop a little bit under that, and that would be already on the danger zone. So the car will pass the night in the inside garage instead of the truck, just to making sure it has a couple of extra degrees. All right, time to put this up. So you want to locate the hole with your finger, and you want to tighten this by hand first. That will make you, in this way you will be super sure that you are not breaking the thread, you are not sweeping it out. So you do that by hand, and now you clean as much as you can. Okay, you clean so that you don't leave a mess behind. Okay, and now you're going to adjust it. I don't think it's super needed to use the specified torque. Just don't over tighten it. Alright, I try to remove with one hand while filming with the other one. There's going to be oil in your hand, so you might want to replace your glove, because you need it to be dry so that you can make some strength. And very important, a little trick, as you know, the regular threads goes counterclockwise for releasing and clockwise for tightening up. If you're watching a thread from above, it's the other way around. So since I'm from above, I'm looking at it from behind, I'm going to make strength clockwise. It was a bit tight, or my hands a bit oily, so I had to use this to release it a little bit, and now I'll do it by hand. By the way, this is the type of oil remover wrench that I really advise. I believe it's the best one, because the other ones you can have an oil filter cartridge that may be too small, too large, and the ones that have a stripe, and the other ones, for me, they are very difficult to use and to get the right size. This one is one size fits all and basically works perfectly, so I strongly recommend it. And now it should be really easy. As I said, you do from above clockwise, and of course oil it's starting to whoop, and there you go. There's almost no oil coming out of the filter. I don't know why. Maybe because it's all in the cartridge, I don't know. Of course, please be conscious of the oil filter having gaskets and things, and take a look if nothing was still stuck into the engine block. And as you might see, the gasket is there, so shouldn't be any issues or challenges putting the new filter back. I'm using synthetic 5W40, I'm sorry, for my car. In the dealer they recommend the regular 10W40, the semi-synthetic. I don't know, I prefer to go synthetic over semi-synthetic or synthetic technology or whatever you wanna hide that is not full synthetic. Original Toyota oil filter for this 1cc engine, but I believe it's one of the most used cartridges in multiple models. And what you want to do is you want to basically lube the gasket here and the thread using the new oil. And since this one goes like this, you can pre-fill it a little bit. I won't super pre-fill it because I don't want a mess in the car, and then I'm going to hand tie by hand. And I don't know if you notice in camera, but this gasket comes pre-lube. Okay, it's the Denso original Toyota filter, comes pre-lube. I'm going to lube anyway. For doing so, I'm going to open the new oil bottle, and basically you don't need to do much, you just do like this. You get some oil in the cap, and then just use some fingers to put a bit extra. As I said, it comes pre-lubed, so in case you go original, you won't need to do this a lot. And then you also want to lube the threads just to make your life easier. Okay, you see it there. So I have gone under the car just to pre-place it, and now I'm going to adjust it by hand. As you see from the above, you go counterclockwise. I do it very tight because my hands are a bit oily, okay, but that should be enough. Now before filling back, you want to get everything clean there, everything that might have get some oil, so that you don't make a mess and you don't leave all the color. So we have now new oil cartridge, and we have the oil pan plug tighten. Both of them are okay. Now I'm going to do the same with the transmission fluid. Remember, for doing transmission fluid, you do the same. First, you make sure that what you're going to use for refilling can be released, so that you don't have a nightmare later. And now you go under the car and you just drain the transmission fluid. Before doing so, I'm going to measure how much oil came out of the engine, and for the other reason for doing so is that will basically leave the container empty, so that I can check how much transmission fluid came out. Okay, I have break it loose, and now that I have break it loose, I try to do it by hand. Transmission fluid starts to spill right over. It's always like that. So I'm going to leave it like this for some minutes. And as you see, you might see it's a bit nasty. What I do is I do a drain and fill every year or twice a year. I don't trust removing the pan and the filter. I know it's not for life, as Toyota says, but I don't change the filter either. I'm in between. I'm going to leave it there dropping for a good deal of time, and meanwhile I'm going to inspect this, and I'm going to place the new original gasket. And it's been 15 minutes and it keeps dripping and dripping and dripping. So I leave it as much as possible. I'm under the impression that it was a bit overfilled, the transmission, it's very dangerous to have it overfill, okay? When it's overfill, basically the internal mechanisms needs to move more oil than they typically should, or they were designed for moving. So that means like slower fluid movement, and so the transmission oil can get hotter, okay? So it's always important not to overfill. So I know it's 2.5 liters, that would be around 2.8 quarts that are drained using this method without removing the pan itself. So that's what I'm going to put back. I'm going to put 2 liters, maybe 2.2 liters, and then I'm going to use, and I'm going to rightly measure using the measure stick when hot, and I'll keep adding if needed. But in this case, it's a bit more dangerous to overfill than the opposite. Of course, you don't want to have it with less fluid either, but a bit less, it's less dangerous than a bit more. And right where it should be is what you need to aim to. This is not like the engine oil. This is not as forgiving as that. I got tired of waiting, so I'll just put it. Remember, as usual, you do this by hand, okay? There you go, I finally got it, okay? So it's softly going in. Alright, you see here what I'm using for measuring, it's under the second mark, so I'm going to add the transmission fluid and see how much it came out. And the answer is from under 2 to over 4, so you have a bit more than the 2.5 I was mentioning. It was a bit overfilled, most likely were like 3 quarts instead of 2.7 or 2.8 quarts, so that's the difference that was a bit overfilled. So I'm going to make sure I put less this time. Alright, so now we are going to put, I'll try to put a bit under 2.5 liters in the transmission, okay? I don't want to put any type of debris inside the transmission, so I'm using toilet paper instead of kitchen paper towels, because it's long and thin. I'm going to do it like this. Of course, I have inspect that the funnel is really clean, okay? And now I'm just going to put the oil here. Since I have 1 liter cans of this Manol Sherman ATFWS Toyota fluid. I know it's not made out of Toyota, but it's the identical thing. I'm going to put 2 full cans and then a little bit of another one that I have open. Always shake the oil because it has some additives that can go to the bottom, okay? So for every time you put some fluid in the car, since they have a lot of additives, you want to shake well. And there you go. You do this slowly, okay? You don't need to rush. Leaving it there for a minute and moving to the second can. And this is the one that I have already opened. It's a bit more than half a can, so I'm going to put some. This is where it should add 0.5 liters, okay? I won't put it all. I'm just going to put like that. I know I'm putting way more than 2 liters, and so I'm going to leave it like that. That's it. I'm still leaving a lot of fluid here, and we'll pray for not having overfill, otherwise I would have to start over. So now the transmission fluid it's done, and I have to put the engine oil in it. I need to put 3.7 liters, so I'm going to put 3 point something, and then in an even surface, because the car is not even, of course, it's on the shocks, okay? Make sure you always double or triple shock. I put the shocks and make sure a double safety, okay? The dents in the, like this hole in the car, and that's stainless steel bar going across. I keep the car lifter put there, and I have the second one. Okay, safety first. But I know I can't measure oil properly like this, so I'm going to put 3 point something, and then I'll check after I use the car a little bit. The bottle has 4.7 liters. The car takes, according to the user manual, 3.7 liters with oil filter change. So I'm leaving like 1.4 liters in the bottle. Okay, this is the liter mark. So if I would put it like till this point, if I would use it till this point, this would be 3.7 liters. That is the right amount of oil that the engine takes according to user manual. But I don't want to risk, and I know it on the minimum side of the oil won't hurt. So I'm going to leave it like that. I don't want to overfill. And then after using, I'm going to properly measure the level. Okay. After you do the transmission service and the oil filter and the oil and everything, you want to turn the car on and stay 5 seconds in each transmission position. Okay, just to make it circulate, and that will help you to detect if there are any leakings from the bolt on the transmission pan. Okay, will help you as well to fill the already pre-filled filter. And you want to do all this before lowering the car, okay? Because this will put some pressure on the system, and if you have any leaks, more than anything, because we didn't adjust to a specified torque, we just use the hand meter, okay, or the eye meter for it. So it's a good idea to put the engine to move and the transmission to move. Lastly, make sure you dispose this in a safety way. Okay, don't harm the environment. Make sure you take this to the city recycle center or whatever you have. Okay, and of course, do not drink alcohol while you do this, because you will be working under your car.